All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the August NACAT Instructor Roundtable. Kurt Ward, I'm your outgoing NACAT president and your host this evening. We have a panel of experts with us tonight as we begin to talk about electrifying the automotive classroom, or electrification of the automotive classroom. Justin Morgan, you're out there as a participant. Do me a favor and use your other login, and so that you are on the panel. You would have got a reminder email from the system about an hour ago. Use that login. And so with me so far are Nelson Kelly and Ben Cruz from the Center for Advanced Automotive Technology at Macomb Community College. Ken Mays from Central Oregon Community College will be joining us momentarily, and as soon as we get Justin on the other login, Justin Morgan from Sinclair Community College is going to be with us as well. Some housekeeping for everybody on the call this evening. We're going to, obviously we have plenty to talk about, but we want to solicit your questions and your input because we're here to try to help you get your program going the direction that these successful programs that we have our guests from tonight. But throw your questions in the chat, and Bill and I will try to watch that chat and periodically try to get those. We want to make sure we get all those questions answered. So as we're waiting for the other two for just a moment, let me start with Nelson and Ben. I'll start with you, Nelson. Give us a quick introduction of yourself, and hopefully by then we'll have the others on with us.
My name is Nelson Kelly, and I'm the Assistant Director at the Center for Advanced Automotive Technology at Macomb Community College in Warren, Michigan. In a previous life, I worked at General Motors for 35 years in research and development, and in the last, I would say, 12, 13 years, I worked on hydrogen fuel cell vehicles and battery electric vehicles.
Makes you immensely qualified for what we're going to do. And also, they were great NACAT hosts in 2017, if I remember my year.
We loved it. Yeah, we hosted the meeting and got to meet all the people that could actually work on and fix cars. I gave a talk there on the fuel cell system.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for being here. Ben?
Yes, my name is Ben Cruz, and I'm director of the Center for Advanced Automotive Technology at Macomb Community College. I came from General Motors, and I worked roughly 36 years there. My last assignment, which was roughly 10 years long or so, was basically running some of the laboratories there, doing a lot of simulation testing, product development, validation, test and development. So that was my expertise area. Upon completion with that, I retired, and then I joined CAT as Bob Feldmeyer was retiring from this position.
All right. Thank you for being here as well. Well, I'm going to tell you what we're going to do. We've got plenty to talk about this evening, so I think we'll go ahead and get started amongst, if you will, the three of us, and the other two will pop in here directly, and they can jump right in. But the kind of the place I wanted to start this evening is, I guess, the why. If you will, as the instructor or the program coordinator or whoever it is at my local community college or high school, as it may be, why do I need to make this move towards electrifying my classroom? I mean, I guess the obvious is our president just mandated the manufacturer's got to be at 50% production by 2030, but what else can we share with this group?
When I was at General Motors, we actually started working on the hydrogen. We were really thinking that the hydrogen economy was going to come to be. And the thing is, when I started at GM in 1977, we were struggling to meet the NOx standard, the EPA standards, emission standards for cars on nitrogen oxides. We had the catalytic converter, single way at that point, just reduced carbon monoxide and hydrocarbons. And then the three-way converter came out that did a pretty good job with nitrogen oxides also. So it's always been a fight to get the car out of the environmental equation. And in those days, perfect combustion made carbon dioxide and water. You burned all the carbon in the fossil fuel to carbon dioxide and all of the hydrogen in the fossil fuel to water. And lo and behold, about 10 years ago or so, the Supreme Court ruled that carbon dioxide was a pollutant. It really isn't. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but it's a greenhouse gas, and it doesn't have health effects the same way that the National Ambient Air Quality Standards for carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxides, ozone, particulate matter, sulfur dioxide, those are made based on health standards by medical people that looked at data. So now carbon dioxide is a pollutant, though. I mean, even if I tell you it's a product of perfect combustion, it is a pollutant. It's something we don't want to put in the atmosphere because it does contribute to global warming. The concentration has been increasing dramatically in the last, I remember in 1977, it was, I think, 330 parts per million. It's now 400 parts per million. And the temperature of the Earth seems to be going up by measurements. And models of the processes in the atmosphere predict pretty much the increases we're seeing. And we don't want to go on as we're going on. We don't want to do the experiment to see what happens if the Earth's temperature goes up. We know it's probably going to melt. All the ice of the ocean will go up and certain areas will suffer. So electric vehicles are a way around that, but not unless they're powered by renewable energy. If you just use power plants to burn natural gas, and we even use like 30 or 40% coal in Michigan, which California people go, what are you doing? But we're still doing that. And you're still using a fossil fuel in the front end to make electricity. Then the electric vehicle, it's still better because generally it gets about 3 times the mileage. So 100 miles per gallon of gasoline equivalent versus maybe 30 on a car. So if we can get renewable energy in there, wind and solar, and even nuclear power, and that has its own set of problems, but it emits no carbon dioxide, we can slow down the buildup of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and perhaps not go to the extremes on the global warming experiment.
All right. Hey, welcome, Ken Mays. Thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you.
Give us the quick introduction, other than retired.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing to say right now. Yes.
Well, and congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. Let me see if I can get. Well, anyway, I'll play around. I don't usually go to webinars, so I had to download it real fast.
Oh, okay.
So I've been at Central Oregon Community College for the last 31 years. I've been the program director and other things on campus. Over the last 8-10 years, we have developed a new degree that is not under the ASE umbrella, but it's an advanced degree that includes controller systems, programming, and we even include clean diesels for our area, but it's mostly for hybrid and electric vehicle training, and that's what we've been pretty excited about. We have been working with lots of other colleges doing similar things, so that's it.
Awesome. Well, that's good news, and here in a little bit we definitely want to talk about your work on the NSF grant or continuing work as we talk about the SAE training and certification.
Yes, sir.
So Nelson, beyond I'll throw this out to Ben and Ken. I guess when I started thinking about all of this, in terms of my own program and why we added the hybrid and electric option a couple of years ago, you realize the Prius is 20 years old now?
Yeah, it's amazing.
And at least here in Chicago, because hybrids are mandated for the taxi cabs, there's 1 million of them running around. And it suddenly occurred to me, hey, we need somebody who can fix these. The other piece that I thought was interesting, I saw first half of the year sales data just the other day. It was preliminary, and I used to pay attention a lot closer when I worked for the manufacturer. But while everything else was off during the pandemic, hybrids and electrics were growing. And we,
Hmm.
in both the first and the second quarter this year, we sold across this country about 150,000, which are basically record numbers. So I think the people are beginning to realize this is real. I don't know, Ben, Ken, you got anything to add?
Yeah, well, yes, finally, most everybody's beginning to realize that this is real and that there are older vehicles out there already that do require some service and some attention. I do on a regular basis get calls from various people that may have an old Volkswagen, an old Prius, an old, something that's been electric, from years past. And they ask me, where can we take these to get them repaired? And it's a difficult thing here because we actually have not been staffing, with candidates, the shops, for EV vehicles. And the reason that we haven't been doing that here in Michigan is because here in Michigan, it took a very long time for electric vehicles to catch on. We've started, there were a number of OEMs that started, releasing onesies or twosies vehicles, and there weren't enough sold out there to really create a volume whereby you would have, the desire to have your own EV technicians or EAS technicians or any of those specialty technicians. So basically, most of the programs were not producing that type of person. Most of the service programs still produce the typical ASEP program. They have added some, EV programs or courses in one form or another. We've done that here in Macomb with hybrid and electric vehicles, but that's about the extent of it. And that doesn't quite make a fully proficient EV person. So for that reason, we decided to start working on our programs. And the other reason is because we also have another unique thing here in the Detroit area, is that because we have all of the OEMs here, and we have all of the laboratories and all of the so a lot of the suppliers, tier one suppliers that supply the industry, and they all have laboratories. We also have another type of technician that we have a critical need for, and we haven't been supplying enough of those either. And that's a technician that basically supports an engineer. In our program, we call it the vehicle engineering technician. So here again, we're trying to basically train some of those folks to take on some of those things. And now, as to why all of a sudden it's exploding, well, all you have to do is take a look at the news, and you can see from all of the OEMs globally that almost every single company is basically putting out an indic that between now and 2025, 2030, 2035 is different for our different OEMs, but they all have a slew of vehicles coming out that are EVs. Secondly, you also read, a lot about a lot of the companies, both here and globally, in a lot of the countries, and how the companies and the countries are beginning to work together because the countries are mandating, some of the EV sales, because again, they want to reduce, some of the pollution, reduce the greenhouse effects. So all of a sudden, there's all of that in the news, and you see our OEMs here locally, basically stating that after 2035 or so, they're not going to be producing ICE engines. So everybody's beginning to see, oh yeah, it's now in earnest. But the one thing that I do caution people is that we don't really have to panic. Because if you think about it, there's roughly 250 million vehicles out there. Even if you're producing and selling a few 100,000 or a few million, it's still going to be a while before you actually, make a huge impact, in the configuration of EV versus hybrid versus ICE engines and all those combinations. Sure. So we do have some time, but that change is real. The change is coming. So I think that we do need to be ready. Secondly, vehicles have been electrifying, not necessarily EV, but electrifying even in the ICE engines. If you take a look at the vehicle, all the systems are now, systems that require calibrations, that require programming, that require, embedded software, that require a lot of diagnostics. So that also is changing. So the need for diagnostic technicians is also there, and increasing. Now, that doesn't mean that the mechanic, the typical old mechanic is going to go away, because again, you've got millions and millions of vehicles, like 250 million right now, and most of those are, mechanical or not mechanical, but ICE engines, and they're becoming less and less mechanical, because you put in a lot of power electronics. So anyway, that's my take on that.
Sure. Well, and Ken, you guys have been at this a while, and I guess you've probably benefited from some of what I call the West Coast effect.
Well, it is definitely a target, whether it was intended or not, but that's the nature of the West Coast. So as you know, California is under mandates. And so when we talk about EV, we're also talking about fuel cell. So as we start down this road, we've been at this about 8 years now. I still feel like a novice at this most of the time because it is quite involved. The challenge that we have is to bring technicians up to a level where they can actually apply their skill as they work on whether it's hybrid or plug-ins or whatever version, but to be able to have the tools, the knowledge, and to approach these things with a pretty safe and pretty logical approach. And it's a great field to be in today. It is a great field. I am excited. I teach this still. I'll still teach part-time, and I love doing it. And the students love it. We're sending several graduates up to Shoreline Community College at the Tesla Training Center every year, and they are treated well, they're paid well, and that's the key part. They pay them well
Yep.
when they go to the job, and because they pay them well, that's pretty attractive. Excuse my nose here. I am sinuses in Virginia right now, so bear with me. Bear with me. So one of the things that we have done in the NevTech grant, that's an NSF ATE grant, is to develop the 20 advanced standards for electric, hybrid, fuel cell vehicles, and we house those standards right now at the CAT Center on the resource page. Thanks to Ben and Nelson, who are generous to let me put those there, and they are the big guys in the NSF automotive family. So we want to house those there for everybody to borrow, steal, or copy things that are off of there. I'll keep going because the most exciting part, the result of having the standards, is now we have a certification process, and it's under the website evproplus.com, evproplus.com, and we're having groups signing up, and it is groups because you can have anywhere from 12 to 16 instructors, and our focus is on instructors right now. And that's the biggest challenge of our effort that we're making, is to train instructors to get into this new world. It's not an easy thing for a instructor who's taught traditional automotive for a long time to get into this. But if you have the determination, it will work. So the certifications, level 1, 2, and 3, are available now, and colleges are ready. We just did 2 test sites, did one at Cerritos, and we did a second at Ferris State, and we'll do a third at Sunline here in October. Sunline down in it's not Palm Desert, but that area. So that's real exciting, and we're getting feedback from instructors on what they think of it right now. But they are all taking practical and written tests, and it is a tough class, and this is a tough test. So that's where we're at right now. It's gonna we're working with the Society of Automotive Engineers, ITC division, SAE ITC, and they are working with us to have the storehouse for everybody who's certifying and the tracking and all of that as we move along. So this is something I didn't expect to have happen this year, but it is happening. I'll stop there.
That's awesome. And we'll talk more about that here in a few minutes, because I think that's a fantastic opportunity for not only for instructors but the industry. And I'll remind the audience as we go along, if you have any specific questions, really to anything that we're talking about, please throw them in the chat window. I know Bill put up a message a little bit ago, but let me kind of switch gears on you guys a little bit And let's talk about our typical student who's been coming into the auto program. You know, as
Can I
we
ask
start,
you a question? I've got a question. Will there still be an ASE L3 exam and I guess test pass?
yeah. Hey, Justin, welcome. So, yes, in fact, as an author,
Just
I
got
got this.
recertified ASE L3, and what's that going to mean? And I know in California, I think you're going to have to be SA certified, but what about other places?
Well,
I
so
know it's kind of a complex
the
question, but
I got to
I'm
see the
curious about that.
preliminary information from the ASC Education Foundation as an author about a week ago, and basically they're recommending that in their foundation certified programs, that if a program decides to add hybrid and electric, they're suggesting that the instructor be L3 certified. Obviously,
ASE L3.
there's not a hybrid and EV section to the program certification beyond some basic safety items, but they at least recognize that you need some of the skill sets that are described there so that you can go forward and do it safely.
Just discuss a minute ASE L3 versus SAE L1. I know the terminology here. I think I got that right. It's kind of confusing, but
Yeah.
ASE L3 is what our instructors at Macomb have taken as the hybrid electric test.
Yeah.
And is that going to still exist? And will that certification mean anything?
Well, I think it depends on where you're at. I think they're both very different tests. I've only had the opportunity to sit on the mindful mobility webinars, and Ken can probably talk to this much better than me as an audience member. But clearly, you know, the ASE test is you go out and you gain your experience in the industry, you take the written test, and that's the end of it. Obviously, the SAE test, obviously the class, it's the written examination and the hands-on performance. So it's Ken, and you can talk to this better than I can, but I liken it to what somebody who wants to get certified in the aircraft industry does before they perform their job on that plane that I'm going to fly.
Well, that's exactly right. And we have, in fact, SAE ITC does more aviation than they do ground transportation. So they're the experts in creating these certifications and validation. The difference that you have with the ASE is that it is manufacturer heavy, where the SAE ITC EV Pro website, that is systems heavy. So it's all about systems, not about manufacturers or how manufacturers do what they do, even though you have to include how manufacturers do things, but it's about the system. And that's really what the L1 and the L2 and L3, you see the classes that are held. The first L1 is a 3-day class, and it wraps it up with a written and a practical test. And it is a tough test. You don't have to do a practical on ASE. It is strictly a written test. And as you know, many people can study for that test, have enough experience, but do they really know the material to teach it, to work on it? And those are questions that we ask all the time. And then you get to the SAE ITC level 2 and 3, and those are 5-day classes. Those are 5-day classes to validate what a person is going to teach or what they're going to know. That's the difference.
Jim Wolman in his book, I used one of his books in the class I taught. We had an electric vehicle certificate 1-year program sponsored by the Department of Labor a few years ago. And he has a practical exams in his book where he has the students do something on the car. I mean, that's what mechanics do. And so, yeah, the practical part of it is good.
So, hey, I'm going to interrupt right here. Justin, welcome. Thank you for being here. Give us the quick introduction, if you would, please. Yeah, unmute yourself. Now?
Yeah.
Okay. The little round button in the top right of your screen, little microphone. So,
He's saying you
hey,
have to do it.
hey, Bill, is he still in by chance in as a audience member, and you've got to do something on your end?
No, he's in as a panelist, but we're trying to get him unmuted.
Okay.
Now try it, Justin. See if it'll unmute now. There you go. You can talk now, Justin. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys. Sorry about all that. So I'm not sure what the deal was there. Repeat your question, Mr. Ward.
Yeah, I just wanted you to introduce yourself to the audience.
Sure. So my name is Justin Morgan. I'm the chairperson of automotive technology at Sinclair College. We're located in Dayton, Ohio, and I've been chair since 2013 and was an instructor since 2005, teaching primarily electrical brakes and air conditioning. And we've had a National Science Foundation grant around hybrid electric vehicles since about 2006, and most recently one around advanced driver assist systems since about the past 4 years. So that's just a little bit about what we do at Sinclair College.
Fantastic. Thank you and for being here and welcome. So let me throw this out to you guys. The typical automotive student that we've been recruiting to our programs for the longest time, is that going to be the same person that's going to be successful in this hybrid and EV world, or do we need to be out recruiting somebody else? Justin, Ken, you've had students come through your program. I know I have too, but I thought I'd bounce it off you guys first.
I'll let you go first.
Okay. Thank you. We saw, as you all did 10, 15 years ago, that the technician of the future and now is going to be a different person. So there are people who are going to be science majors, physics majors, computer systems majors, and we try to attract people in all of that. Anybody at a college, your best audience for recruiting are current students who get disgruntled with their particular program. And you want to be able to have a voice on the campus that says and signage and whatever you want to do to attract those students. And then, of course, regional high schools and job retraining. But all of those things, you have to make it exciting. What has made it exciting for us in the last 4 years is Tesla coming on campus. And they have a recruiter that comes in and they bring the cars. And we do auto shows. We'll have people volunteer to bring in their Tesla or their electric motorcycle. And it's amazing how that corner of the fairgrounds gets swallowed up by high school students really fast. So it has to have some pretty jazzy stuff, but we have to have pretty good follow-up as well. So there's another level of attracting students, and that's to be able to do follow-up phone calls and having somebody dedicated to walk them through the program. Okay, Justin, your turn.
Thanks, Ken. I agree with you 100%. It's interesting because we've been able to recruit some mechanical engineering students that have been remote the past year, and they really want to be face-to-face, and so they've chosen to come to our automotive program, a handful of those students. But we also have a Model 3 Tesla that we use to go out to STEM schools, not just automotive career centers, but also to STEM schools to try to get individuals engaged. So, Mr. Ward, you asked the question, are we recruiting the same individual? I don't know that I have the answer to that, but I would definitely say that we need to prepare our programs to get that individual ready for the career or the workforce, right? So we may not get much say in who we get into our programs. We can certainly try to, but ultimately maybe we can manipulate our curriculum and our courses to try to get those individuals up to speed to where they need to be for the advanced technology.
So I know, Nelson, you and Ben actually don't teach the classes, but if you look at particularly the students who are coming into your vehicle engineering technician program, are those typically students who've gone through the general auto first, or are you getting those folks from someplace else?
Actually, they're people from somewhere else. Basically, our which is the ASAP program, draws their own people, and, obviously it draws it because they're corporate sponsored. And, they always have, a group of people that basically follow that program, right through. We, on the other hand, what we're doing is we're actually partnering with various companies, like Roush Industries, we've had communication with Continental and a couple other companies. And basically what we're trying to do is offer internships, that would drive people into the vehicle engineering technician program. So they're basically two different arms. One of them is going to be, the service technician that's going to the dealership. The other is going to be, those people that are going to be supporting engineering in laboratories, in proving grounds, in test houses, and that kind of activity. We have a number of different companies, including ACM and Martin, and quite a few other companies that actually, have solicited, some of these folks, because what they're looking for are people that have not just the basics in automotive, but also have, additional electronics, some software development, that kind of stuff, a lot of diagnostics in particular, so, because of that, we obviously go out and partner with companies when we do, say, an information session. And during the information session, we bring in, a representative, from a company, and basically they speak with us, as to what the program is and what it is that they have to offer, through internships, up to employment.
Awesome.
So one of the main things that I would say is different about the vehicle engineering program, we actually have the students take physics as their science class. And if I could say there's one course that helped me in my career at General Motors, it would be 12th grade physics. More than anything I took in undergraduate college or graduate school. It made me appreciate and get pretty good at math, trigonometry, algebra, and even calculus, which I actually taught in this electric vehicle program, and I showed the students how you could use calculus to take distance versus time, get velocity, and velocity versus time to get acceleration, and force time to mass time acceleration is force. I mean, you just build all this stuff up in physics that you understand. And the electronics that we put in the VET is taught from the engineering technology side, not the automotive technology side. The automotive guys are good with DC, but not so good with AC current and capacitive reactance and inductive reactance and sine waves and that RLC analysis that's in the engineering technology electronics is the key. What does that mean to the auto technician? Well, they're going to have to step up their game too. They don't have to go all the way to all the things I mentioned, but when I taught this one-year certificate to people that were underemployed and unemployed that got into this Department of Labor grant, Ivy Tech and Macomb were the electric vehicle, and then they had something on renewable energy at two other community colleges. Anyway, I was teaching kind of remediation on this basic physics and the math, and they got it. We did problems. We went through it, and we explained it, and it was something that they were kind of afraid of, and really, didn't in the high schools emphasize taking these science classes like chemistry and physics. Just about everybody hates chemistry, and you don't really need it in many cases. But physics, I think, would be so useful to just about everybody that works on something as complicated as a car.
Yeah. So really that kind of leads me to another question. When you look at the typical automotive program out there, and they realize that yes, we're going to need to do something electrical. What do they need to do to their program today? What else do they need to be teaching to essentially prepare that student to be successful in the HEV and the EV world? And again, I'll just go around the screen.
Look at that, and this with the SE, I looked at that, and it's Ben and I's job to get that into into the system, to start upgrading the automotive courses at Macomb, to start there and use that as a model. And the vehicle engineering technician will help us do that. The stuff that's being taught at SE, L1, L2, L3, L1, I would say, is where we're going to stop for the automotive service technician. At least as far as I understand those three levels. But it's our job as the Center for Automotive Technology to address the gaps for the incoming cars, and that's what we're doing. We're doing it currently, and we have a plan to do it for the next 3 years if NSF funds us. So that's our job.
Sure.
I'll speak next. And at the CAT Center, at the NSF ATE CAT Center, on the resource page, you can see the mindful mobility webinars that were broadcast just over the last 6 months. And that will help a college to start down that road. If they have not started deeply into electric, then this is the place to get started. I'm also applying for a grant along with Ben and Nelson, and my grant that I'm hoping is to introduce this to 21 community colleges in 3 different regions of the country. We have about 800 community colleges that have transportation programs. Several are developed a lot of good stuff already. And my compliments to those colleges, but I would say easily 85% have not. And everybody needs help with developing a different degree. You can call it automotive technology and something, but I personally think it should be a 2-year degree, and it should be a standalone degree. I don't think it should be the same degree that you're currently offering. I think it should be standalone in some form. You're going to still have to offer basic automotive skill sets in that as well. But when we talk about electric, it used to be called alternative. It's not going to be alternative anymore.
No, that's for sure.
And so everybody hold on to your current degree, but let's develop a different degree that encompasses these new technologies. And the standards, if you read the standards, they're really great training things. Along with the CAT Center has incredible resources on curriculum. So I urge people to investigate the NSF ATE CAT Center to see what is available right now.
It's AUTOCAAT.org. If you go to AUTOCAAT.org, you'll look along the top, and if you go over to the top right, there's going to be NevTech. And then you can see these seminars. You can see the standards Ken has developed. And I'll mention John Frau. John Frau has a successful, maybe the only unique, fuel cell program in the United States at a community college called Rio Hondo. And his students are getting jobs. Now, it's not a pipe, I mean, it's not a perfect world. California has fuel cell vehicles for sale from Toyota Mirai. But what John tells me, the hydrogen is very expensive, like $20 a kilogram, which is like $10 a gallon gasoline. And there's actually been a shortage of hydrogen. So it's a tough, they're determined to put in like 100 fueling stations. I think they have 50 right now. But, and that opens up another world for technicians too, to keep the infrastructure, the pumps, things like that going. So, but he does have the program. He's had it for several years. He's worked with Ken on these standards. The fuel cells standards haven't come in yet, and that'll be down the lines. But fuel cells have some advantages and disadvantages. One of the advantages is going to be for heavy duty trucks, because you can fill the fuel cell with hydrogen, fuel cell tank with hydrogen in minutes, just like gasoline. And then the truck can run and put out nothing but water vapor, no carbon dioxide. So the trucks are one place where the hydrogen might be better than a battery. But be that as it may, if you want to understand how fuel cells and batteries, then you have to get into chemistry. It's not very complicated. I mean, conceptually, it's an oxidation reduction reaction in chemistry. But and I love it, of course, because my background was in chemistry. But for 20 years,
for us novices, it is complicated. Nelson.
Well, John and I did a webinar on it. That's also on the CAT site, and he did all the practical stuff, and I did the chemistry and you know how fuel cells have these two anodes, cathodes, and membranes and stuff like that. It's on its basis, it's high school chemistry.
You want to jump in there, Justin? What your all's experience has been like there at Sinclair?
So I think we're going to take a little bit maybe different thought at it. In our program, we already have a hybrid electric vehicle class, and I think it'll be a track within our current degree. So it won't be a standalone degree right now. You got to remember, we're in the Midwest, so we're in Dayton, Ohio. We're not along the coast, and we're not in a very large city where you see an exceptional amount of EVs or hybrid vehicles. we still do a lot with diesel trucks. And I would advise that you would probably want to weigh in with your advisory committee for those of you that have typical automotive technology programs to make sure that you're still supplying employees skills that they need day in and day out. And I would have them buy into what they believe is going to be best suited. In our Mopar program and our GM program, we used to have the diesel class, but probably for this upcoming year, you'll see the GM students definitely switch over to the hybrid electric vehicle side. Ours is most likely going to be a short-term certificate added on to our general degree. And then I think that, for us, we're going to be scaling back in other areas on clock hours and going to have to add, we already have 2 electrical classes. We're probably going to have to go to 3 and to have more time spent on not only EVs and driver assist systems, but just really good, sound, proficient, fundamental skills in electrical. I don't think there's a automotive technology instructor that said we couldn't have spent more time on electrical troubleshooting. Personally. So I feel like that's just something that we're going to have to make sure that students coming out are very, very sound with our program. So hope that helps.
Yeah, and that's interesting because obviously I'm in the Midwest. Chicago, obviously a little bigger market than Dayton, and so again, because of some of the local mandates, we have a high concentration of hybrid electric vehicles. And much like yourself, we have an add-on certificate right now, and I expect in time it'll grow. But it's interesting. We had the exact same conversation. Hey, is it time to add electrical 3? And when we started looking at even some of the fundamental skills, and we haven't done this yet, but I think it's in the pipeline, that quite frankly, we just didn't spend enough time on. And when you start talking about having to, as Nelson had said earlier, having to have stronger AC skills as opposed to DC, understanding, in a much better way, how a permanent magnet motor works as opposed to an alternator. There's a lot that we don't cover, and then you get into just even the OE reprogramming and how we just barely skim on it, and that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. And oh, by the way, yeah, there's what stop start becomes standard in 2022 if memory serves me right. And I realize some of those are going to be 12-volt systems, but how many of our students, in some cases, unless they've worked on a diesel, have tested a vehicle that has 2 batteries? So I guess, and maybe I'll pose this question, if I'm at school out there, maybe I'm not on the coast, maybe I'm in the Midwest like you and me, I don't have a big budget. Where do I start? Where's my best money spent? Is it on more electrical?
My stuff is for free. The courses that we have are listed out there for free. You can download them. So you just go to resource. I'll look at it here in a second.
Yeah, well, let's look. Oh, did you find them? Well, let's look. And our thought, is that we do not have. We're not going with a standalone EV program. Basically what we've got is the ASAP program where we've added hybrids and electrics, and then we've got the VET program where we have more electronics and systems, and we'll offer, Justin was saying, we'll offer a second track, and we'll offer a second track for both, actually, for the vehicle engineering technician as well as for the ASAP program, and with the intent of growing that as time goes on, because believe it or not, this is an automotive center here, but we don't have a whole lot of vehicles that we sell out there that are EV compared to the ICE engines. So there's still a market that's fairly growing. However, it does appear like it's going to take off over the next 2-3 years, substantially. So as we go along over the years, we're going to continue to grow that program. But for the time being, we're not going to take our ASAP program and completely turn it around. And the reason we won't is because, there's still that OEM demand for that dealer service technician. On the other hand, the other program that we've got, the VAT demand, for the laboratories, the proving grounds, the supplier house, test houses, and all that. So again, it's two separate degree programs, And each one of them needs, the EV portion of that, but it's not a complete program in itself. It's just a second track.
I'll go next, and then Justin, you go ahead. So, Kelly, Nelson, were you finished? Did you have one more thing?
I was just going to say, if you go to autocat.org, and along the top, you'll see Home About Cat Educators. Under Educators, there's something near the bottom called Seed Funding. So if you click on that, it opens up our whole set of free things. And if you, under Seed Funding, look at funded programs, it has completed projects. If you click on those, you'll see a description. For example, there's one under Springfield Technical Community College near the bottom that is automated, connected, and intelligent vehicles. You can download all the free materials for that. You have to answer a couple questions, but that's just for our records, because we answer to the federal government and they say, well, are people reading your materials? And we have to say, well, here's our number of hits on a certain thing. So we don't collect any information on you, who's downloading it, but we need to know that it was downloaded to an educator, or sometimes I look at it, it's CAT staff. But you can, if you have any questions on that, my email address is kellyn@macomb.edu, kellyn@macomb.edu. I will send you a link that you can make it easy for you to do that. I just gave a talk on this at the high tech meeting, which is for the Advanced Technological Education Group, on our seed funding process, which is what we use. We pay people to develop new courses in emerging technologies like connected automated vehicles, electric vehicles, and we did a lot of lightweighting also with Kettering, designed with aluminum, things like that, because that increases mileage too and reduces fuel consumption.
My passion, this is Ken Mays talking, my passion is to help community colleges develop programs that'll lead towards electric vehicle, fuel cell type training around the nation. I would encourage people to go ahead and put groups of instructors from various community colleges in a region, could be Northwest, Midwest, and go ahead and sign up for the SAE ITC L1 certification class. And go ahead, and there's a lot of preparation that you have to do before you show up, as you would imagine. And so there are 6 weeks of preparation before you come in and take that class. And once you are in that class, your eyes will open and say, okay, now I know where I need to go. I know how to develop this now. You can contact me if you need that information.
My turn?
You bet.
Right. So I think you asked the question about, you don't have a big budget, and there sounds like there's a lot of resources out there, and I think, besides the resources that have been listed, there's some good stuff that you and I even talked about this past week, heard on YouTube from different schools. I think working with a local shop or dealership or somebody at your organization that has a vehicle, if you don't have an electric vehicle or you're not fortunate enough to have a donation process, when you're wanting to do some hands-on stuff with your students, I think you're going to have to maybe ask a local dealership like a Nissan or a GM dealership. And if you have a friend in the college that has a Tesla, that at least you can maybe walk around and do some stuff. Students really enjoy the hands-on stuff. You're going to have to get creative to do that, to get those vehicles. And as you mentioned, the Prius is approaching, did you say 20 years of age now?
Yep.
And so, there's definitely some vehicles out there that can be bought fairly cheap that aren't full EVs, but a lot of the same principles that we're probably going to see for testing purposes on EVs would probably still apply. So, if you're a lean program, there's definitely other ways about going about it to get those hands-on opportunities for your students that maybe currently don't exist with a full electric vehicle. And I would reach out to like some local, even if it's not an automobile manufacturer, there's some EV startup shuttle places that are looking for technicians that might be willing to bring a shuttle down if they can get a graduate out of your program to go work on those. So there's a lot of opportunities to partnership and network would be what I would say to try to get some hands-on experience.
Yeah, and I'll make this suggestion. Automotive instructors are pretty creative people. And one of the things that automotive instructors do really well, almost everywhere, well, they may not have maybe a formal class on something. They're pretty good at figuring out stuff. And I'm going to tell you what, go find a Gen 2 Prius. Maybe you found one that's been banged up a little bit, and that's okay. And you, like you said, Justin, you can pick them up for next to nothing. No, it's not an electric vehicle, but guess what? There's electric motors in that transmission. It's got a battery. It's got an inverter. It's got the pieces.
Oh, yeah.
And um, and and quite honestly, take it apart and figure it out. Now, obviously, we need to talk about some safety stuff here. But if you're talking about your students, I mean, it's not that big of an investment to get the gloves, get the few tools that you may need, and think about this. Even if I have just a high school program, the excitement that you would generate, even if all you were doing was depowering the high voltage battery. And to me, as we've started looking at changes that we want to make in our program, and I heard somebody mention this earlier, we've got to do stuff that's exciting, because that's the hook. I mean, obviously it's more than that. We got to show them that there's an income afterwards, and there is. And I'll toot my own horn here for a second. The next NACAT news, which comes out after September, I wrote an article and included the pictures, and I'm calling it Demystifying the Hybrid Automatic Transmission. And I took a Prius transmission, it happens to be out of an 08, it's a Gen 2. I scoured and got the teardown instructions, and it's just basically a step-by-step. And my goal in all of this was to show everybody via my process and the pictures that while it looks horrible, it was terribly simple on the inside. And any good auto teacher could figure this thing out. And we have lots of good auto teachers out there across the country. And this thing came out of the salvage yard. It was out of a wrecked Prius. It had a cracked case by one of the coolant tubes, so it could never be sold. Nobody's going to tear a transmission apart and put a piece in it, or not very often. They're just going to drop a unit in. So they all but gave it to me. It was a few $100. And those are the type of resources. I'm blessed here in Chicago. Prius is primarily the taxi, and taxi drivers can absolutely drive a car into the ground, build it back up, and if you find the shop that's doing all the work, they'll all but give you the pieces. I don't know. To me, it was a great way to, I guess you'll call it, self-driven, hands-on learning. And it wasn't much of a hit to the budget, that's for sure. So
I'm updating John on Jim Haldeman's book, coming out, a new edition of his EV book.
Yeah, Jim and I have just finished the manuscript on a new hybrid and electric book to replace the book that he's had out for a number of years. If Pearson's operating at their usual speed, it'll probably be out right after the first of the year. We kind of tried to focus on a program similar to Justin and mine, where it's kind of an add-on to our traditional legacy program, and to cover the things that are different. So as we get towards the top of the hour, unless I have overlooked anything, Bill, I haven't seen any questions yet. Bill, have you?
Yeah, there's a bunch of questions and comments. They're
Okay.
actually, if you're watching the chat box, they're not in the chat box. They're actually in the question box, which is separate. That's okay. So there's a couple things.
Okay.
There was a question. Somebody wanted to know, is anybody aware of a week-long class like Jim Linder used to run the Guru School, where technicians could go and spend an entire week to improve their, electrical diagnostic testing skills? I'm not aware of anything. Does anybody know of anything similar to what Jim used to do?
I'm sure Cam Hayes knows about There's Mark Cordo has boot camps on this, and Craig Battenberg, I know in Massachusetts, has boot camps on this. I think
Yeah,
they're about a week long.
but Craig's is strictly hybrid and electric. The one Mark does is really advanced electrical.
And electrical and programming.
Right, a
So
lot of programming.
And he has boot camp 1 and 2, which are skills that instructors and technicians need to know.
Yeah.
Does a great job.
In our VET program.
Look that up on futuretechauto.com, futuretechauto.com for the boot camp, and I encourage everybody to attend.
Okay. There was a question, did any of the panelists have suggestions on getting donations from manufacturers to add to a program once they've got curriculum?
Well, sure. I'll start, and everybody, and Justin, you can probably jump in right behind me. You've had pretty good success, and I'll be really honest. Having worked for a manufacturer and knowing people in the industry, even after I came out, certainly was a help. But know your products. When Nissan went from the first generation to the second generation Leaf, I found out by accident the first generation ones, which were pre-production vehicles, were all sitting in the training centers, just taking up space. And we're a certified program. I went up to the training center. I said, hey, this is what we can use it for. Who do I get a hold of? The training center manager was a super great person. He said, now, here's what I want you to write in a letter for me that I can send up the food chain. He called me about a month later and he said, you got a truck to come get it, it's yours. I was able to show the manufacturer that I was going to put it to good use. So that's how we got our Leaf. Justin, you've got some vehicles.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%, Kurt, having some connections in the OEMs and stuff definitely helps. I would say that now's the time to work with your administration. The EV stuff is the hot topic. And if you can show this advanced technology to your deans and provosts and VPs of instruction, you might be able to get some additional funding. But certainly between the Leafs and the Chevy Bolts, there's an opportunity to connect with a training center, maybe someone in a local dealership as well, to try to find who you can contact within the corporation. A lot of the vehicles we get, of course, are buybacks or pre-productions, as Kurt mentioned. And when they're buybacks, there's opportunities to get that. So, but definitely, I think going through your administration also is now a time. I know the local career center in our area that their superintendent bought a Bolt because they want to see some advanced technology at their career center. So they just passed a levy, and they were able to get some funding to get a Chevy Bolt for their program. So administrators are buying into this right now, in my opinion. Now's the time to go after it.
Oh, absolutely.
Portland Community College, also in Oregon, just received 10 electric vehicles, plug-in electrics, from their power company grant. So the college foundation went after the power company grant offering. We're doing the same thing. We're not as big in Central Oregon, so we're going after 2 brand new electric vehicles. But every electric power company in the country is offering subsidies or help with grants to purchase a 1 or 2 or 5 vehicles. So consider that as you're exploring. And of course, surplus at every state has something.
Another avenue that we were successful is to look at the major employers who are in your school district or your community college district, whatever. For example, the Granger Foundation, Granger, the warehousing, they distribute everything. They were building a new warehouse literally in our backyard here in Joliet, and they had money to spend. They wanted to be good community partners, and we had a specific need. We said, hey, we would like a full hybrid, and they had a dollar amount in mind. They said, you find it, we'll buy it. And our Mercury Mariner, or in this case, the Mercury equivalent of the Ford Escape, they bought for us, and it's displayed on the wall prominently as their donation. But it was, and in fact, they even went so far as to provide the isolation meter and some other tools to go with it. So it was just a matter, they were looking to be a good community partner, and we gave them an opportunity to spend some money, and they were more than glad to do it.
Hey, Bill, you had a question too about a week-long training. Is that correct? Were you talking about electrical troubleshooting skills, or did you mean specific EV training?
Well, that was, let me go back and find that, Justin. Are there any week-long classes?
Lost you, Bill.
Hear me now?
Barely.
Barely? So it appears it was really about electrical and scopes, not specific to EV, no.
Okay. Yeah, and I can't think of any off the top of my head that are in that regard. So Justin, let me touch. Well, is there any other questions, Bill?
Here's one that just came in. Anyone have any success from insurance companies getting salvage EV or hybrids?
That's not an avenue I've tried. Anybody
We've
else?
not tried that either.
We have not tried that. We did have some salvage vehicles for our hybrid grant, but those were all purchased with grant funds through the salvage yard and then rebuilt, not through the insurance auction.
Yeah.
We have salvage yards that auction off all of their cars, no matter what they are. And one of the partners that I teach with purchases several of those cars for his own use. But those are available all over the country.
Here's an interesting comment. Somebody just added, local media loves stories like companies donating. The publicity is for your program and for the company. That's kind of interesting. There could be a lot of good PR come out of that.
Yeah. A couple of years ago, my students and I took a older Toyota pickup truck with a manual transmission and pulled the engine and all the internal combustion related components out of it, and equipped it with an electric motor and powered it with just regular, well, golf cart battery. It was a 120 volt system, and so it would run about 30 miles before you had to plug it into the wall and recharge the batteries. But the local Herald News, which is our local smaller newspaper, not a Chicago-wide, got word of that, and they were there interviewing the kids, taking pictures, writing the article, and it literally was on the front page of the local newspaper. And we probably had more interest in the program in that 2-week period than we've ever had in the history of the program. So absolutely, I would agree 100%.
I don't know if anybody on the panel can expand on this. The question is, are you watching what schools in Germany and the Netherlands, Holland, are doing with EV training?
Well, Craig Van Vandenberg must be logged in.
That's, yes. Is there a giveaway there?
Well, he would be the local expert on what's going on in those areas. But it's one of the things that we don't have in this industry, in this country, that probably Europe benefits from are the formal mentor and apprenticeship programs, where they really do develop some incredible talent. And so, but I'm glad that Craig is joining us tonight. let me as we get.
Let me answer a little bit of that. And so I'm in contact with a few countries, Great Britain, Germany, Australia, and each of those countries are developing their own standards, and we compare notes on those. So I've been watching what they are doing. They really formalize it a whole lot better than I do, but because they have some substantial committees that work on those things. But they are not any further ahead of what we're doing. They just do it a little bit different. I'll stop there.
No, that's good information. So here, I'm going to touch in two areas here as we kind of get into the last half hour. So as we talk about the EV and obviously the HEV stuff that we've talked about, now let's throw ADAS on there, and then let's throw cybersecurity in there as well. I was fortunate enough to be in the first year program that you had there at Sinclair. And obviously that has continued this year now, I guess, post-COVID. And then the whole cybersecurity piece, which, there's a great piece of information on in the CAT library that I've shamelessly stole from. But how do you see these two topics fitting? Yeah, used with permission, right? But how do you see these two topics folding into a EV program? Because I feel like they're going to be an integral part.
Well, when you plug your vehicle in, it's something you could download malicious software. So everything needs to have cybersecurity, and the car is going to have something called a security credential management system. It's like a garage door opener, a real new garage door opener. A set of credentials that the manufacturer puts out there and can change if they need more of them. So that's all in the course that Mehrdad Zadeh and Craig Hoff of Kettering prepared for us, and we got it in the curriculum committee and got it into the VET degree at Macomb. But anybody can use that as a basis of their course. It uses the Car Hacker's Handbook as one of its basic books. A car is becoming a node on the internet, so they become connected to the infrastructure, the traffic lights, the GPS system, the remote key start, the wireless pressure transducer. That was the one that Miller and Valasek used to hack the Jeep. They're white hat hackers. They told Chrysler about it, and they fixed it with over-the-air update or some kind of update. And that's another thing, over-the-air updates. What if the hackers want to hack into the big companies and hold them up for a ransom, like just happened, I guess, with the pipeline. That's what they want. They don't want to crash some individual car unless taking an example to do something terrible to get everybody's attention and get more money. But that's cybersecurity is, we think that the vehicle engineering technician needs to have some working knowledge of this. And we actually have, I shouldn't say he has a cybersecurity challenge at Macomb Community College every year run by SAE, and I think General Motors provides the cars, but maybe other manufacturers too.
So Justin, are you guys to the end of your grant, or is there going to be some more classes?
So good question. We have concluded with the advanced driver assist systems information, and we're actually moving towards EVs for next year. So we have a supplemental funding. So that's why I was asking Mr. Haas if it was more specific. So in next July, we'll have a hands-on class for an advanced class for Tuesday through Thursday, a 3-day session on EVs there at our facility in Dayton, Ohio. And the goal is to get the instructors to do like we're talking today, which is integrated into their curriculum. Go back to your original question, though. You were kind of talking about ADAS and kind of how we, I think, bring that to our program in cybersecurity. I've talked to the chair of our cyber program and computer information systems. One nice thing that they offer is they have a CAN networking class, which I think goes a little bit beyond what we would teach in our typical day-to-day automotive body electrical classes. I could see that being another elective. So in our program, we have like a welding or a machining class that's not automotive based, but it's part of their curriculum for their 2-year associate degree. I could see that being another course that could be added in as cyber networking class that's not even ran by our program, that's outside of our department and is offered to those students at a maybe a 1 to 3 credit hour course depending on your program. So for us, I think advanced driver assist systems and relearning and some of those target relearns and those things are going to trickle into our steering suspension class, our advanced electrical class, that electrical 3 class we're talking about, Mr. Ward. I think that's where, for our program, it fits best, but that may not fit for everybody's program. I think, again, just consulting with the advisory committee and allowing those individuals, that are hiring your graduates to weigh in a little bit, but I still think there's going to be a need to introduce EV and ADAS and, of course, FlexRay and other advanced networking systems that continue to evolve and hit the market.
Yeah, and as you talk about the advisory committee and obviously the value of a really good one, and we've had kind of an interesting addition to our advisory committee. We have now 2 of the major, actually 3 of the major forklift companies on our advisory committee. You start talking about Crown and Toyota and some of these, and they're pretty much building nothing but electric forklifts all of a sudden, and they don't have there's not a forklift program. Well, there is at the local community college usually, but it's for somebody to learn how to drive one, not how to diagnose and fix it. And so that they can, safely move the stuff around the Home Depot or the warehouse or wherever they're working. And they've come to us and they said, hey, these skills are transferable. And it's interesting now that we've got students out at these companies. That, of course, the first thing they find out is, hey, they get this cool truck to drive home every night. But more importantly, and obviously, I think it really calls for the need for this electrical 3, because almost everything they're doing is really advanced electrical. But it's an interesting market that if you're looking for somebody else to tap into your program, you want to talk to somebody about it, I would highly encourage you to find out who those local distributors are in your area.
The challenge I've seen from a chair level on that, Mr. Ward, is I agree 100%. We've actually had some graduates get some really good jobs. Is the delicate balance of your advisory committee, your shop owners and your service managers saying, well, you guys are an automotive technology program. Why do we have such and such manager from the local forklift service company down here, poaching our graduates? So, that's a delicate balance that I've already had to deal with as a chairperson. But some individuals are going to go that pathway. But it's funny you mentioned that, because I know that you and I had talked about that previously, or through our network. But one of those organizations has reached out to our program about potential partnerships after they heard we had a Tesla Start program. So that's another opportunity. As far as just a electric service technician, right? Because we talk about shuttles and medium heavy duty market trucks and buses and stuff like that. So maybe it's ground transportation more so than it is automobiles. We always, as automotive technology instructors, our main thing is passenger cars, I would say, arguably. So maybe we need to look at that at a different lens and look at it from just electric vehicle ground transportation.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm sure that there's other markets that need that same person that we haven't even begun to think about yet.
Many forklifts are fuel cell vehicles, yep. Hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. And I met years ago, and Chris McWinney of Millennium Rain in the Dayton area. We drove down. He was making electrolyzers and fueling stations, and he would have a hydrogen highway in Ohio. Have you ever met him or know of him? Chris McWinney, Millennium Rain Company. Very progressive. I haven't checked in a while, but he was selling some of these fueling systems, and he also had an educational electrolyzer for students, so they could understand why there's twice as much hydrogen as oxygen produced by the electrolyzer, because water, everything. It was very interesting, and he had business plans for it, and he had some fueling stations, but maybe it didn't take off.
Hey,
So
Kurt,
we're
if I can jump in here, I've got a question that just came up from your last segment that you started. And the question started off with, do you think it will go the way of the Chrysler Secure Gateway? Expanding upon that, cannot connect a scan tool without proper identification security. Been out since 2019. I think that's what they're trying to.
yeah. Chrysler starting in 2018 on the truck was the first one, and several other models after, and I think they're 100% now. They added the secure gateway, and again, this kind of goes back to some of the actions that they took going back to the GPAC a number of years ago, where they had the hole in the navigation software. But anyway, so yes, you have to register your tool, you have to register yourself, and is Chrysler going to be in this alone? Absolutely not. Others are going this way. The reality is, if you plug in your scan tool and you're not registered to those vehicles, you can still read fault codes. You can still see the OBD2 monitors, because that's all required emission stuff. But what you're going to lose is your ability to go in and say actuate a component, that two-way operation. So you can still get the basics. You're not completely locked out, but some of the features, like if you were used to being able to actuate an EGR valve or an injector or something like that, you're not going to be able to. And quite frankly, all they're trying to do is make sure they know who is getting into their software, and making sure it's a registered person, that you're one of the good guys and not one of the bad dudes out there. And the reality is the data link connector is probably the most vulnerable spot on the vehicle from a cybersecurity standpoint, or actually just a security standpoint. It's not even cyber; it's a hardwired connection. And so that's what they're going to do to protect their product. I don't know. Anybody else want to add to that?
I think you stated it quite well. All the OEMs are going in that direction.
Yeah.
In most cases.
Right. So that's, and yeah, if you want to disassemble the dash and plug that aftermarket loop in and bypass it, you can get around it. But it's a whole lot easier just to follow the process and register your scan tool, and yourself, and it's not a big deal.
So the cybersecurity we're talking about is a little bit different than that.
Yeah.
At the beginning of this thing, NASTF or something that so they can get in and make the key fob work and things like that.
Yeah.
The cybersecurity we're talking about vehicle to vehicle is going to a message that one car sends to another, and it's going to have information in it, but it's going to have some security to it too. It's not just the process car that are talking to each other over the CAN bus, and it's going to soon be Ethernet. It is Ethernet in many cases. And most technicians, not the engineering technician, learning something about Linux and C programming and Unix systems. That's when somebody mentioned, Justin mentioned cyber from his IT people. Yes, that's good. If you get your engineering technology, or many of the courses we have in our vehicle engineering technician came from existing courses in other departments. Unfortunately, we couldn't do this at Macomb. They didn't want to get involved in automotive, maybe didn't have the time, so Kettering did it. But the cybersecurity in the vehicle to vehicle, what they used to call dedicated short range communication, where the cars talk to each other for over 300 yards. It might be cellular rather than that. That's another one of those things, like the mileage standards of 54.5 miles per gallon that didn't happen, but now it's being looked at again. So cars communicate, and that cybersecurity involves of the security credential management system. It's a whole different thing than the locksmith type.
Yeah. So here would be my suggestion for somebody who has a curiosity there. Nelson mentioned this early. Go on to Amazon for 25, 35 bucks. You can buy the Car Hacker's Handbook. It's an easy read. You'll read it in a couple nights. You'll get hooked and you'll read it. And they list the pieces in the book. I found them all on Amazon. I didn't spend $100. All right, and then some freeware software that I'm not entirely sure where I got it from, but it hasn't taken my computer down, so it must be fairly safe. And I was amazed. Huh?
You reverse engineering the canvas?
Yeah. So you can look at the CAN bus. You can capture. Well, I can make the TPMS light flash on the car. Just some goofy things, but it's amazing how much I've been able to teach myself about why this is such a big deal.
Yeah, the security of the CAN bus was just the complexity, but if these hackers get into it and reverse engineer it, it takes them a long time, but they can do it.
Yeah, and to get into it, it was, and I don't completely understand what everything means yet, but to get into it, you can see why it's universally used, because it was pretty wide open and pretty simple to do. But anyway, I digress. But like I said, great read. But here's what I'd like to do in the last. We've got about 7 or 8 minutes before we hit the bottom of the hour, and I want to be. What I'd like to do is just kind of go around the screen and just give everyone a chance to kind of give some closing thoughts on this whole topic. We've covered a lot of subjects tonight, but kind of give us your perspective from a closing standpoint. I'll start at the top of the screen, Nelson.
Well, I think electric vehicles are on their way. They're going to be, in addition to their environmental benefits, there's some exciting driving benefits, and we all know Tesla's ludicrous mode and things like that. But they have to be made less expensive, and obviously General Motors thinks that that's going to happen, that they're going to get the battery costs down, and you're going to be able to buy one for a comparable cost of a regular vehicle, and they're probably going to be very long lasting. They're going to have to be, because the vehicles you buy from every manufacturer are very clean running, as clean as they can be with respect to criteria pollutants, not carbon dioxide, but and they last a long time, and they run, up turning the service engine light on for a long time. So the competition is tough, but electric vehicles are going to overcome it.
All right, Ben.
Yeah, I think that electrical vehicles are coming, and there is a wave coming, relatively soon, and will continue to grow. And that's obviously due to mandates, from the different governments. It's also due to the old range anxiety that's basically gone away, because you've got much higher ranges, with the batteries. Additionally, the battery cost continues to go. You are going to have an increase in those sales. That being the case, eventually, that we may come to a point where we'll have half as many electric vehicles as we do ICE vehicles over 20-year period, or whatever the period is. But eventually, you will have a saturation point where you will need quite a lot more EV technicians than you currently need now.
Very good, thank you, Ken. Oh, you're still muted, Ken. You're muted, Ken.
Oh, you're muted.
There you are.
Oh, how's that there?
There you are.
Is that better?
Yep.
All right. The button got pushed.
I hear you.
Two things. We talked about them earlier, and we were talking about auto electric 3 class in a current situation. I encourage all instructors to go through the boot camp 1 and 2, steal all those ideas out of those 2 1-week courses, 2 1-week courses. I've got a dog here somewhere. I don't know.
Oh, you had a dog.
I didn't know I had a dog, but I guess there's barking. So if anybody can sign up for futuretechauto.com and enroll in those boot camp classes, you will not regret it. To build up your curriculum, to build up your baseline as a technician. The second thing, I would go ahead and get a consortium of instructors and technicians together and take the EV L1 certification test. It's a EV Pro Plus. EV Plus Pro, excuse me, reverse that, and go ahead and sign up for that and get a group of you together and launch a class or a degree or build your skill set as a technician. You won't regret it. I'll leave it at that.
Awesome. Thank you. Justin?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I think this is a time to work with your administration to try to see about getting a donation, whether, no matter how small, whether it's through your foundation, or as Kurt mentioned, maybe a salvage yard that has a deal on something that you can grab onto. But you could sell it to your administration that, hey, we're going to take this EV vehicle, the fleet. You can share it with another department that may be able to get use out of it and try to get yourself a vehicle and do some training. I would advise to go through your advice committee to make sure that you feel that it's warranted. I think, of course, introducing hybrid electric vehicle technology is super critical, but at what level for your program and your geographic location? I think at each school is going to be slightly different on how that looks for your program, and that's going to be best suited to have internal discussions in your region with. I think Ken mentioned a portion of instructors and maybe high school instructors on how you guys can work together, and I think that would be critical to try to see what would best serve your local shops that are hiring your graduates. So, but I would definitely strike while the iron is hot. I guess the fire is hot there with the getting your administration on board to get a electric vehicle for your program.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Hey, Bill, before we wind this up, or is there anything that's come in the question pane that I've missed that we need to cover?
No, I think we're good. I think we got everything covered.
All right. Well,
we did put the CAT information for the resources page down in the chat box for everybody. Also had some information there about a ZF program that's a week-long training program with the EV certificate that's available. So all that's in the chat box that all the attendees can see that stuff.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Well, gentlemen, I can't thank you enough for being a part of this. I feel like there's just been a ton of information here, and I have a gut feeling that after everybody goes back to school next week and they have a chance to digest this and hopefully act on it, that they're going to have a whole bunch more questions. So maybe in a relatively short period of time, I can reach back out to you, and I might talk you into rejoining me, and we'll kind of take it to part two and see if we can kind of talk to the questions that might be generate once people go out and give this a try. Would you be willing?
That'd be fine.
I'd like to do it.
All right, awesome. Well, like I said, thank you. You guys are a wealth of information. I am just certain that our audience tonight got lots of good information on places to start, and even those who weren't with us, the recording will be available through our normal NACAT channels here once it's all been processed. So we'll be able to reach yet another audience. So again, thank you. Thank you to the audience for being here tonight. Thank you for your questions and your input. That certainly helps to drive our conversation. And let's see, Bill, beyond, hey, we got a NACAT conference that's going to be in person in 2022, COVID willing. What else do we need to share before we let them go?
Nothing I can think of. There will be another instructor roundtable in October, so that information will come out about 2 weeks before it actually happens. Nothing else I can think of, Kurt. I've got a couple comments here wanting people saying thanks to NACAT, thanks to Kurt Ward, thanks to all the panelists. So again, thank you everybody for your time this evening.
Absolutely.
It's a pleasure.
All right. Well, again,
welcome. Good
thank
night.
you very much. Have a
Bye.
good rest of your week.
Thank you.
All righty. Good night. All right. You're shutting it down on your end, right, Bill?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
All right. Do the same.